this was bad. Like there was no like confidence behind it. It's like, dude, if you're looking for a spot on this team, you need to put a ball in the back of the net in penalties. I don't care if it's preseason. You have to put a ball in the back of the net. Blast one in there. I don't care. At least give it a chance. No, didn't give it a chance. Wasn't even, it was bad.
Was he just trying
It'd
to
be like you or I passing a ball, trying to pass a ball to the keeper in the middle of the net. That's what it looked like.
Was he just trying to be like too cute with it?
Oh yeah.
That's
Way too cute. It's like, dude, just bury the ball. Yeah, that was frustrating, especially when you're the number 3 out of everybody that's out there. Like you're number 3.
Right.
So bad.
Siemi Bakayoko, oh yeah. Samina mina, Edward Mende, Samina mina Sam Sadate. He comes from Senegal.
And I think going out and get Saul was the top transfer of the market for Chelsea.
Chesney could have been in the shower smoking a cigarette like he was at Arsenal, and we still would not have scored.
My rants have been fueled by Scotch. Don't get it twisted.
Big Rom. Man, fuck you.
In Roman we trust, right?
You and me are going to have a battle royale about Jorginho and diving.
The flag stays down!
All right, welcome to the Flag Stays Down podcast. Following a close, I guess you want to call it, defeat against Charlotte FC. Lost 5-4 on penalties, 1-1 in regular time. You got myself, Andy. You can find me at Comiskey North. You got Matt as well at Matus Lee. Parker could not make it tonight. So Parker, thanks in advance for listening. Matt, it was it was a game.
I mean, both teams played something of a sport. Yeah, it was the definition of a very MLS type game.
Yeah, MLS and just CONCACAF in general is a great way to describe that. The officiating was poor, the commentary was poor, the play was poor.
You're being generous by calling the commentary poor.
Should we just start on that right
Yeah.
away?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we've hyped it up on this pod. We've certainly other podcasts have, but soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, is growing in America, right? It has grown. I believe in terms of people who watch it, it's now the number 4 most watched sport. Like the Premier League is now the number 4 most watched league in America. So like we have people, and people are very knowledgeable, but goddamn, this whole FC series is just, it's a poor representation of America in terms of soccer knowledge. And it starts with the commentary. There was another match a couple nights ago where it went to penalties, and they were doing the in stadium people were doing like the goal celebration, fireworks, and like goal for every single penalty kick. Like, I'll let you go, but I'm going to bring up here just some of the gems that we heard tonight from this commentary team.
So I'll start right away with ESPN Plus. So obviously the Chelsea game was delayed, so I threw on the Bayern DC United game. So as I'm watching it out in the garage, I have the option. Do I want English or Spanish? I speak a little bit of Spanish, but I'm not that well versed, so I choose the English version. Perfect. All of a sudden, I turn on the Chelsea game before kickoff, and I'm hearing both the English and Spanish commentary at the exact same time. There was no option. It just turned the game on, no option for English, Spanish, and then all of a sudden you're hit with both at the same time. You know how tough that is? And granted, I watch TV out in the garage or whatever. I usually have the radio on in the background, just like really light or something like that. But no, trying to actually focus on the game, and you have two different languages trying to commentate at the same time, and you're trying to pick up on one versus the other. Figure it out. You're ESPN. How do you not, like, clearly you can differentiate your streams. I just saw it in the Bayern DC United game. I know you can do it. I've seen you do it on everything else that you do on ESPN Plus. How do you not have that just differentiated all the way through? So that was the first thing that pissed me off. I have no idea who did the commentary for this game. They should never do commentary ever again for any sport. It was so bad. Misnamed players. You know, Collins, I know the one that you're going to get into, so I'll save that one for you. I gotta remember the guy's name. They said it enough, so I should remember. But they were going on about him for about 5 minutes and his name.
Is it like the Shiki guy?
Yeah. Like, okay, I get it. Like, he's got an interesting last name. Cool. But they just went on about it for 5 minutes. It's like, really? And I get it. It's Chelsea in the US. They're playing an MLS team, but they were definitely pro US, like pro MLS the entire match. It's like, I get it, but at the same time, like, as a commentator, you're supposed to be a little bit unbiased. Nah, no shame. The fact that they went on about a guy being a weeble wobble for about another 3 minutes. And I'm pretty sure one of the guys was too young to get the reference. So that was quite interesting to listen to.
I'm the old man on this pod, and I don't understand that reference.
See, I understand the reference, but it was in no way, shape, or form applicable to anything that was going on. Like, they were just trying to like find things to sound like anecdotal or somewhat comical and actually talk like they knew the sport, and they had no clue. It was just bad all the way around. It's tough to listen to a game like that. Collins, I'm pretty sure you turned the game on mute for a while and were more content that way. And I don't blame you. I listened to the whole thing, and that was atrocious.
Yeah, it was about the 35th minute I put it on mute, and I had South Park going in the background, so I was just listening to that, and then I for whatever reason I turned the volume back on, and so these are some of the gems that I found. At one point, the color commentator asks, "Do you think Mason Mount makes the World Cup roster for England?" What kind of fucking dumbass question is that? Of course he does. I started counting, and then I lost count at one point. The amount of times the color commentator said "whoa" during a play. Like, it could be a slide tackle, it could be a shot, it could be a pass, but it's whoa. Like, we're not listening for that commentary. And then great follow on Twitter, Jordy X Collins put out a Chelsea versus Charlotte commentator bingo. Matt, did you see this? Look, Matt, did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm back. It kind of dropped on me a little bit. It says I have an unstable internet connection.
Gotcha.
But I'm back. Yeah.
All right. So Jordy X Collins on Twitter put out a Chelsea versus Charlotte commentator bingo. It's got 9 spots. So here we go. You have to fill every moment of silence. Can't have any dead periods. Explain a very basic rule of the game. Mispronounce someone's name. Compare themselves to a pro athlete. Reference American football. Talk about the U.S. national team. Bring up players who aren't even there. Talk about growth of soccer in the U.S. and make a joke about VAR. I'd say that's a bingo.
Yep. I'm pretty sure they hit all of that by halftime.
Oh yeah.
I think they won bingo every single round that they had it.
My favorite was there were two. One when they said every time he said Michi Batshuayi.
Yep.
And then when they called Reece James Rick James, and the guy kept saying, "I'm Rick James," and then he would like pause, like, "Oh, I can't finish that."
Nope.
And it'd just be dead air.
So I don't know if I accidentally dropped her in this one, but did you talk about the corner that was thrown back into the
No, I didn't. Thank you for. Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, there's a random corner kick. It was a Charlotte corner kick. I think it was their first one of the game. Chelsea heads it out in a very MLS style. Charlotte just kind of pops the ball back into the box, just randomly in the air, not to anyone, just kind of floats it in. And the guy says, "Putting it back in the blender."
Yep.
What? I don't even know, but like this is the broadcast that's being broadcast across the world, and we struggle to get enough respect as it is, as American Premier League fans and soccer fans and all that. And this is just setting us back years and years and years. It's a disgrace, and these guys, I'm pretty sure they called the game in Vegas too, but they need to be kicked off the tour here.
Oh, another gem that you might have missed. They were talking about Kennedy's hair.
Yes, I did hear this one.
Oh yeah, that was a gem. Talking about how he changed up his look, so he's got like a bleached look now. And one of the commentators said he must have got that in Vegas. Well, it must have happened in Vegas, but it definitely didn't stay in Vegas. I'm like, wow, that is just, you're just reaching for whatever you can get your hands on at that point. It was just so bad. Like, I'm amazed I was able to listen to it.
Well, and you had made the comment early that it was like we were watching a USL game.
Yeah.
For those of you unfamiliar, USL has a deal with ESPN Plus. All their games are broadcast there, and it's all kind of I'd say kind of like a grainy picture. The score up in the left-hand corner is pretty generic, and it's great. You and I both love watching USL, but it's not like top class broadcasting. And I mean, they had the team abbreviations mixed up for a while. We were Charlotte, and Charlotte was Chelsea. Like, come on, guys! Like, I don't know, just do better.
Yeah, that was the very first thing I looked at when I looked at the top left. And granted, I get it; it's whatever, but it looked like the exact same stuff for like a USL match. And I'm like, if ESPN is only putting in that much effort, and they're the ones that are doing a lot of the broadcasts for MLS today, like Fox Sports, they get usually the high profile games, but everything else is usually on ESPN Plus. And if that's the level that you're going to give when you basically have visitors, right? You have visitors from across the pond coming over, and big names in terms of world football, and you're trying to grow the sport in the country that you are inviting them to.
And keep in mind, we're still the world champions.
Right. Like, To me, ESPN really fucked that one up. And I was okay with the Bayern DC United broadcast. Like, to me, that was fine. But I don't even want to know what the Minnesota Minnesota United and Everton match was like. Like, I shudder to think at what that looked like. It's just bad. Like, you have time to prepare for this. You know what's going to happen. I'm curious to see what they do for the Chelsea Arsenal match.
It has to be better, right? It has to.
I don't know if it can get much worse.
Yeah.
I've been shocked before.
Maybe they'll get Derek Ray to call that, or
hell, give me Kobe Jones. Like, give me somebody who's actually played the sport. At least I can deal with that. I have no idea who these two guys were.
Would you take Taylor Twellman calling that game?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I love Taylor Twellman.
So just one more note here before we get to the actual game itself. U.S. supporter culture, not like Premier League supporter culture, but MLS. I know Charlotte's a first-year club, but I hear the same song over and over and over and over and over again, whether I'm watching USL, whether I'm watching NPSL, which the Milwaukee Torrent are in, whether I'm watching MLS. And it's that song and I don't know the words to it. All I know is how Forward Madison does it. And it's like, Vamos, Vamos, Flamingos. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
I swear,
I was at that game with you.
Yes. But it was like 60 out of the 90 minutes. I swear they were singing that song in Charlotte. And I hear that at every single match that I watch. It's like, come on, guys, like, be creative. Like, you're not being different or edgy or anything like that, like supporters clubs are supposed to be. You're just following the same damn footprint. And it bugged the hell out of me. So that's my last gripe about the non-football part of it.
One other side note that I think also set the tone for pretty much the entire match. The sound system was not properly working for both national anthems for England and the US.
Guys,
So there was that too.
oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to be an American soccer fan after these two matches. I hope to God that the game in Orlando is going to be a lot better.
I hope so too. It's just poor. Like, no wonder why big teams don't want to come to the US. They look at it, and especially looking at the commentary and just the broadcasting and all that stuff, like, I don't blame them. Like, I really don't. It's no surprise. I mean, Collins, you'll be able to answer this. When was the last time Chelsea was in the US? Like, playing in the US?
Oh man, well it was the one Parker went to when they were in Minneapolis. That was what, 2016, 17?
I rest my case.
Yeah.
Like, it perfectly explains it. And like, if anything, send the American teams over to Europe to play. That's how I would do it.
The only thing that would have been worse is if we would have played at a baseball stadium.
Oh, we should have played at Yankee Stadium.
Should have played at Dodger Stadium if not for the All-Star game.
That would have been fun. Yeah, there's just so much, and we've only scratched the surface of that. But yeah, we can talk some actual football.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have more after Saturday's match. So we'll put a pin in it for later. But yeah, getting to the match. Another thing that disappointed me. I feel like this is gonna be a negative podcast, and maybe it shouldn't be, but Callum Hudson-Odoi.
Yeah.
So all the hype was, he didn't take a holiday. He was right in training. He put on all that muscle, like. And the first thing I thought of when I saw that report months ago, maybe it was a month ago, I don't know, was, how in spring training or training camp or NBA preseason, you always hear about the fringe guy coming into camp, put on 10 pounds of muscle or, something like that. And then that guy ends up being like cut or like, DFA'd a month into the season or a non-contributor. It's the first thing I thought of. And that's kind of playing out here with Cho. He has not looked good these first two matches.
No, he's I think after this match, he's kind of solidified one of two things. Either A, he's going out on loan, or B, we're going to sell him. Like, I really think those are the only two options for him right now. I don't see him being I don't even see him being a fringe player anymore. Like, I see him being a player who's like just on the out. Like, there's no other way around it. He has not looked good. And yes, you can make the argument, well, he's not playing with, a lot of the top team or the first team guys. The argument that I have against that is you look at tonight against a first year MLS team. He's playing on the right. He has Reese, he has Ziyech, and he has Jorginho and Kova. And you're telling me that you can't really produce that much off of that?
Here's what makes that even worse. And we talked about this a little bit in the build up here. Kenedy came in for him in his exact role, right? The direct slot. Kenedy didn't he had a good game. It wasn't a great game, but it was a good game. But just the difference in all of a sudden we were a threat down that side. We were, Kenedy was doing things. It makes Cho look so much worse. I mean, Kennedy's been out on loan for what, 6 years, 7 years?
At least.
We had to recall him from loan because we didn't have another left back, and he's not even a left back. And you're
right.
You're being outplayed by this guy. Man, yeah, I think you're right. Cho needs to be loaned, but I feel like with the whole Bayern saga from a couple of years ago, it's out of the question at this point for him.
Yeah, I think, and at this point, nobody's going to want him after seeing him play, at least in these first two preseason games. Nobody's going to want to take him. If they do, they're maybe going to ask $5 million, and that might even be steep. He just, there's a lot of hype, and we saw moments of it last year, and then he had that mysterious injury where we never saw him, and we had all this hype and everybody was hyping Collins what you said. He took a very short holiday and was right back training and put on muscle and everything. Well, guess what? I saw the same old Cho that I saw last season. It wasn't great. He is making a lot of mistakes. He's not, he's just not doing what he needs to do to make a case for him to be a first team player. And I don't know how many more chances we're going to be able to give him. I don't know how many more chances Tuchel is going to be able to give him, because if you remember a couple of years ago, Tuchel brought him on in the second half and then subbed him off 20 minutes later because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do.
Yeah,
I don't see how he comes back from this.
With the size of the squad in the preseason, with the amount of players being sent to the U23s or being sent back to England, you got to figure he's probably going to play against Arsenal. He'll probably play against Udinese, and then we start the season. And looking at the schedule, you got Everton, Spurs, Leeds, Leicester, Southampton in that first month. I don't think he plays. I don't think he features in August.
I personally would take Timo over Cho hands down right now.
I'd take Kenedy in a pinch.
Because I know what I'm going to get out of Timo.
And especially now that Raheem Sterling's in the squad, it's there's no no open spot for him. And I hate to overreact in preseason, but it's just like you said, you're playing a first-year MLS club. Last match we were playing Club America, which had a mixture of first and second team. You got to do something. Again, Kenedy looks good in these matches. There's no reason that Cho can't. But talking about wingers, we got to touch on the goal scorer here.
I mean, the only thing that I'll just kind of follow up with in somewhat defensive Cho, he was going up against a former Premier League left back in Christian Fuchs, and he was a very solid left back, especially the year that Chelsea won the title, or that Leicester won the title. He was a solid and very serviceable left back. So he's going up against somebody with Premier League experience. On the flip side, he's also at the end of his career. And you're telling me that you can't get past him? That's bad. Like, that is absolutely tragic.
It's not good. But turn into a positive here, another attacker. Christian Pulisic, we're on the U.S. tour. It's his first start on the U.S. tour. This is his first tour with Chelsea in America. He did some very Christian things today. He cut inside a bunch. He was creating. Scored off of a rebound, which is classic Christian. I've been listening to some non-Chelsea podcasts lately, and they're all talking about this is Christian's last season at Chelsea. I'm not totally sold on that, but I'm curious to get your take on where he fits into the squad this year, because he's looked pretty positive in his two appearances this preseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been playing well, at least in the preseason. He's kind of fit into that role at Chelsea as kind of that 70th, 75th minute sub, fresh legs against the tired defense, like go at him, things like that. It's a problem because you kind of have to flip a coin to know what version of Christian you're going to get. And I don't think that's from a lack of effort or anything like that. I'm definitely not saying that, but there are some times where you see him just take over games and start creating and just a man on a mission. Then there are other times where you just kind of see him doing Timo things and just kind of running up and down and with not a ton of purpose. I think if that is true that this is going to be his last season at Chelsea, then I think he's going to be trying to make a case for, okay, think of like a contract year in American sports. Collins, I'll use baseball reference, drink. Usually you see players' productivity go up in a contract year, right? Because they're looking for the most money that they can get. I feel like we're going to see a little bit of that from Christian. He's like very positive in the first two games this year. And I hope that continues to trend upwards because he's got a shot at being a very, an important player on this team, right? If Raz plays 2 matches in a row, he can play that left. If Timo goes, if Timo stays, whatever. If Mace plays 2, then he can definitely pop out on that right. So, or he could play that that kind of that number 10 behind Kai. So like he's got options for where he can be on the pitch. I think that he's going to need to do a little bit more than just be that versatile player that we know him for. He's going to have to produce more than he has. And I think that's the only way that we look at possibly giving him a contract extension or at least try and get back some of the money that we spent on him a couple of years ago.
See, and I've got a different outlook on Christian, but it's a lot of the same points. It's you can call it a contract year, right? We're going into a World Cup year here. The U.S. has depending on how you look at it, it's a semi-favorable draw, right? But the expectation here in the States is that, I would say quarterfinals would be a good expectation for the U.S. in winter. But Christian's he's going to have to be a major part of that. So I think you're going to see a motivated Pulisic this year. As long as he's still, making those runs into the box, as long as he's still trying to beat defenders off the dribble, as long as he's, getting in those spots where he can get those rebounds like he did tonight, I think we're going to see a very good Christian Pulisic this year. And with Boley, American owner, I think playing into the stereotype of, American owner, American players got to do the marketing, all that. But we've seen from Boley that he's all about not necessarily star power, but veterans and guys who are established and all that. Pulisic has a little bit of that, with Operation Restart. And yeah, he had a down year last year, but there's nothing to say that he won't bounce back this year. It's just where does he fit into that lineup? We've seen Mason Mount kind of fill in that number 10 role at the heart of the midfield. We've seen Ziyech there as well. I could see, at least for the first couple matches, a lineup with Sterling, Havertz, Pulisic as your attackers, and then you got either Mace or Ziyech as that number 10. So really, it's gonna, if he's got a first good month there, I think we stick with that. But it's good that we have options, right? You got Mace, you can throw out there on the wing. You got Ziyech, you can throw it on the wing. You got Timo. But I'm expecting a bounce back year from Christian here.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see it. I'm just a little hesitant based on the ebbs and flows of his form, and it can be the greatest of great, or it can be the worst of the worst. I think if he can find some sort of consistency, that'll change things. I don't think he has to be, Operation Restart Pulisic. I think he just has to be a consistent version of Christian Pulisic. And I think if he does that, then he'll be in good graces with Chelsea leadership, and there could definitely be talks of a contract extension.
All right, so I've been debating whether or not I want to bring this up on the panel tonight, but we don't have Parker here, so let's just do it. Jorginho.
Oh boy.
I thought he had a positive match against Club America. I thought he had a positive match again tonight. I really think in a three midfielder formation, Mount, Jorginho, Kova, you got Conte rotating in and out, you got Gallagher in and out. I like what Jorginho's doing. I honestly, yes, I will give it to you 100% that he had a down year last year. And I know you were all on that pretty much from the start of the year. But I mean, he had a deep Euros run last year. We had the Champions League, so our season went a little bit long last year. He had that nagging injury where we didn't have any other midfielders, so it was like, well, I mean, if he can play, he does play, which I think hurt him in terms of his performance as well. But like Parker said on last week's call, I think he brings kind of stabilization. He stabilizes that midfield, especially in the attack. Yeah, there's the back passes, there's side passes. You're going to see that. Like just in the role that he plays, you're going to see that. But I think he has a knack for when the run is there, when the attack is there, of finding it. I think that he played in that second half where Raheem Sterling was making those crazy runs all the time. I think Jorginho would have found him at least on a couple of occasions, unlike what we did in that second half. I think Jorginho's back.
I'm not going to go that far and say that he's back. I will say that that I thought that he was definitely somebody who had who definitely stood out in a more lackluster game. I think that, again, the partnership that he has with Kova, and I forgot the stat that I saw today, but it was like when both of them played together, like as a pivot, with I think Jorginho as the pivot, they outscored opponents, or Chelsea outscored opponents like 24-2. And again, a lot of that, I'm personally going to put a lot of that on Kova, but at the same time, I do understand Jorginho's role, and I do think that in these first two matches, he has looked better than he did last season. And with somebody of his caliber, I think he knew that, and he had to come out and kind of prove that, Collins, what you said, that he's quote unquote back. But I'm going to need to see it in a more widespread kind of environment. Again, a match against Club America, a match against Charlotte. Like, I expect Jorginho to dominate and dictate pace, tempo, like just dictate the entire game. I expect that out of him. I want to see if he's going to be able to do that when we go into matches against City and some of the top six in the Premier League. But I do think so far that he's had a positive, you can call it 90 minutes total between the two matches. I think he's had a positive 90 minutes. I do think that things change when he's out there. Things look a little bit more controlled, but I still need to see it over a more widespread sample size.
Let's get into that midfield a little bit, because like I said at the beginning of last year when I said that Saul was the transfer of the season.
Glad to see that one held out.
Yeah, right. I had said that our midfield depth was going to be crazy this year in 2022, 2023. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that. I mean, Billy Gilmore got sent to the reserves, to the U23s, just to get match time, because he wasn't going to get any match time in preseason here. It would not surprise me if he goes out on loan again. But back in England, you've got Conte and RLC who couldn't travel due to vaccination issues. You've got on this tour Jorginho, Kova, Mason Mount. I'm going to throw him in there because he's played in the midfield in the last couple matches. Gallagher. How do you, opening day at Everton, how do you structure that midfield? Who's starting for you in that midfield?
On that day, opening day,
Yep.
Jorginho and Kova. To me, that's going to be your starting. And the only reason why I say that is because I want to be very cautious with Conte. I don't really want to voice him against Everton. Like, I really don't. I'd rather save him for somebody like Tottenham. But I think it would be it, because knowing the way that Frank is probably working with Everton and all that stuff, you're going to need somebody that can control the midfield. And I think that's definitely going to be Jorginho and Kova. So that's how I would line up. The bigger question is, what does your bench look like? Like, who gets dropped? And obviously, things are gonna shake out with loans and whatnot. But I think your bench for your midfield, I think it has to be right now, I think it has to be, if we're going Jorginho, Kova, it has to be Conte, RLC, and Connor.
So yeah, and I'm not even sure that RLC makes the bench. And yeah, we're not going to see a lot out of, or we're not going to see anything out of him because he's back in England training with the academy. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's J5, it's Kova, and then probably Mason Mount as the third, playing in that 10 role. But I would do Conte and Gallagher off the bench. I don't know. I think we have too many attackers, too many wingers, too many forwards. I don't foresee us having 3 midfielders on the bench.
So I do with RLC for one specific reason. He can also play right back.
Okay.
And I know that Dave, I don't know what's going on with his situation. I don't know if he's going to Barca, if he's staying. I really don't know what's going on with his situation. But if you don't have Dave, then I'm definitely putting RLC on the bench. Would I like to see him more in the midfield? Absolutely. But he's somebody who can hold his own in that right wing back position. And then you put, either Trev behind him, or you put Koulibaly, or, obviously talks are that the Koundé deal is going to be done in the next few days. You put that behind RLC to give him more support, more structure. I think that he can definitely be a serviceable right wing back, depending on what happens with Dave. If Dave stays, then yeah, definitely Dave and RLC's out. That's kind of how I look at it. But I don't know, and I guess that gets to a different question altogether of, has Connor done enough to beat RLC out for a spot, even on the bench? And that's going to be something that luckily we don't have to figure out because we don't get paid that kind of money. But that's going to be a tough decision. And yeah, right, unfortunately we can only speculate because we don't know what's happening with loans and things like that. But yeah, I would like to see RLC on the bench, possibly groomed in that right wing back position, but still able to go in and handle things in the midfield if needed.
So I'm glad you touched on the Koundé transfer. Word is that could possibly be finalized by the time this pod drops. Depending on what levers Barcelona pulls, which I don't fully understand. That could be a podcast in and of itself right there, is Barcelona's finances. But I saw the question today on Twitter, or it wasn't really a question. It was a statement. It was, Chelsea is an elite striker away, assuming we get Koundé, from being a title contender. Because in the back you'd have Koundé, Koulibaly, Thiago Silva. Our midfield we know is set. We've got Raz, you got Pulisic, Ziyech, Werner. Do you buy into that we're only an elite striker away?
It depends on where the elite striker comes from.
Well, not okay. So not necessarily throwing any names out there, but let's say a 15 to 20 goal scorer. Does that put us in contention for the league?
I think so. I think that we beat that point into the ground last season. We need somebody who can finish, and the closest that we have to that right now is Kai and Mace. Argument could be made for Reece James.
Yeah, and none of which are out and out number nines.
Correct. And that's the biggest thing is like we've seen City do it for a while where they haven't had a true number 9 and they've still been able to win the league. So it can be done. It's just a matter of philosophy and who would fit that role that we could actually go out and get. And I think that's ultimately the biggest question is we don't know who that is. You know, we can sit here and speculate for hours upon hours. Like I think Lewandowski could thrive in the Premier League. I really think he could because he's clinical. If you watch the goals that he scores, they are clinical goals. Doesn't matter who he's playing. He's burying stuff that nobody's going to stop. And I think you need a striker of that caliber. And again, we've talked about, you know, what league do they play in? Oh, they scored 30 goals in Serie A or 30 in the Bundesliga. That's great. Come to the Premier League and let's see what you can do. The problem is you have to pay a ridiculous amount of money. I don't know, roughly 100 million pounds. Not talking about anybody specifically. But you have to do something like that just to find out that, hey, they're really not that great in the Premier League as they were somewhere else. And I think that's the problem with strikers is they have high price tags for scoring goals, but it's based on what they've done in the past in perhaps a lesser league. And that's an issue that I have with the ridiculous price tag of a striker. Defenders, I think is more solid because defending is defending, right? But if I'm defending, you know, Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga, whatever, like you still have good strikers that are in those leagues. But if you're a striker and you're going up against subpar defenses, yeah, you should be scoring 20, 25, 30 goals a season. But then when you get to like the upper echelon of defenders, which I think the Premier League has, at least from an overall standpoint, that's when we see what you're made of. And I think that there has been a lot of strikers have a hard time adjusting to that because it's not what they're used to, and they're used to just kind of running everybody over. So I don't know if we're to say we're an elite number 9 away. I think we are, but we don't necessarily have to be.
Yeah, and I think a 20 goal scorer would help, right? Obviously it would help. We haven't had that in years. I mean, Diego Costa was the last clinical striker we had. You can throw Olivier Giroud in there too, but I mean, he was only playing European matches basically at that point. I think it would help, but I have to see what Raheem Sterling does to give an opinion on whether or not that pushes us over the edge. What I saw out of Sterling tonight was very Eden Hazard-esque. There was a lot of dribbling at people. It was a lot of attacking defenders, which we haven't had, like I said, since Hazard left. Pulisic does it a little bit, but he doesn't feature enough. Ziyech doesn't do it. Timo Werner doesn't do it. Kai Havertz is definitely more finesse. Having somebody who can, weave his way through a defense, who can go at defenders and then create from there, or create his own goals from there, is crucial. And if Raheem can do that, I think then yes, a clinical striker, a 20 goal scorer, puts us over the top. It puts us in contention with City and with Liverpool. But like we've seen at Chelsea, big ticket transfers don't always work out. So I'm gonna hold my judgment through the first couple weeks here and see how Raheem does. But the early signs on him are very positive, I'd say.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
All right, so I do want to close it out here with our 2 polls. Like I said last week, we run 2 polls after every match. We run our traditional man of the match. We throw 4 options out there at you. You can always, if you feel it's someone else, you can always throw that in the comments. And then we also have our man of the get the fuck out of here, which is for our worst, our least favorite thing about the match. So for our 1-1 loss against Charlotte, man of the match options are Raheem Sterling, Mason Mount, Christian Pulisic, and Kenedy. Matt, who is your man of the match?
For me, it was Christian. I think it's kind of slim pickings on who we had, but Christian obviously got the goal. He looked very lively, very positive. So I would have to give the nod to Christian.
Yeah, and Christian was the goal scorer. I think that gives him a leg up, but I liked what I saw out of Raheem Sterling. I think he just didn't have the people around him where he was able to thrive. But the runs he was making, the attacks of the defenders he was making, it was, again, something that I hadn't seen in a while out of Chelsea. So he's my pick. He's also our voters' picks. Raheem Sterling with 50% of the vote. Pulisic and Kenedy at about 20% each, and Mason Mount at about 10%. So turning to man of the get the fuck out of here. It really had nothing to do with the game. Honestly, our 4 contenders here are the commentators, which we went into in depth here. ESPN Plus in general, penalty kicks, and the lightning delay. Matt, what's your man of the get the fuck out?
Commentators.
Yeah, and I don't think that deserves any further explanation. We really went in depth on that. That's mine too, and that's also the voters at 50%. Penalties at a close second at about 40. ESPN Plus at 10. Lightning did not get a single vote.
I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if we put Connor in that one.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on getting into that. Let's get into that real quick.
We might as well.
Do you blame him? Is it all the other stuff he did in the match, was that enough to kind of make it a middle of the road game for him, or was that just a poor performance overall from Connor?
In a system where your manager expects a lot out of you and things to be run his way, and you are arguably a slightly above the line player, like you're probably going to get first team, but there are still questions. For you to go out and do something like that and quite frankly embarrass yourself, that shows to me a sign of immaturity that I do not think Tuchel will take kindly to.
Is it the penalty you're talking about?
Yes, specifically the penalty. I thought he had a decent game besides that penalty. We've seen you can absolutely ruin an entire game with one crucial mistake. And I think that's what he did. You have to think about it. You're looking for a first team spot in one of the biggest clubs in the world. You're kind of getting hyped up as somebody who's ready and things like that. And you go into a penalty shootout in preseason against an MLS team, and you try to be cheeky instead of just blasting the ball home and just being sound, confident, secure. to me, that shows overconfidence and immaturity on his part to try and think that he can pull off something cheeky. I didn't like it. I thought it was a waste of a penalty. Like, send the ball home. Just place it somewhere. But no, like, that thing was absolutely tragic. It reminded me of, I gotta remember who it was. Adama Lookman for Fulham, when they had a chance they were in a relegation battle and they had a chance. I think it was against the top 6 team, I believe. And he tried to do a Panenka and the keeper never moved. And it was the last kick of the game. And they needed a point. It was either a point or it was to win the game. And he tried to do that in like the 96th minute. That's what it reminded me of. Like, now is not the time to try and be cute. Now is the time just to pick a side, drive the ball home, and call it a day. And that's honestly the first thing I thought of when I saw that penalty. I'm like, oh my God. I just rewatched like that exact same incident. I thought it was poor from him. Not the right time, not the right place.
Yeah, and the only thing is, I don't know how much. Like, yes, it's definitely a negative. I don't know how much Tuchel is putting into penalties. It seemed like none of the fan base knew this was going to penalties. I don't know how many of the players knew it was going to penalties. It's not like you're playing in a cup final and it's like, oh, okay, 120th minute, like I got to get ready to do penalties. But at the same time, watching the goalkeeper basically laughing after the fact was pretty embarrassing. But I thought Gallagher did a lot of nice things in the midfield in the actual match. I don't know how much it hurts him, maybe a little bit, but I don't. With the strength of our midfield, I don't think he was necessarily fighting, or he's going to be fighting for a starting spot. Anyways, I think his position's kind of set on the bench.
Yeah, it's just one of those things though. Like, if we're out there, playing whatever sport and we're kind of on the fringe about something, or we're on the fringe of making a team or something like that, you want to do everything you can to show your coach or manager that you're ready. And to me, that showed that he was not ready by trying to do something like that. And
that's true. That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, so I guess you're right. That definitely doesn't help him there.
But who knows? We'll see what happens in the coming month, and hopefully it didn't hurt him too much, because I like what I see out of him on the pitch. But if it comes down to penalties, right now I don't want to see him out there. I would pick Mendy over him right now.
Just watch. He's gonna pick up a goal and an assist against Arsenal here.
If he does, good on him. But he better not be taking a penalty.
All right. Well, that just about does it for this week. Sorry we couldn't be on Twitch. Parker's the one who handles our Twitch feed. So we will be back on Saturday after the Arsenal match. Again, just go to Twitch and we're at Flag Down Pod. We'll be there right after the match. You can also find us, if you listen to the podcast. We release all of these live post games as a podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcast at Flag Down Pod. We just ask that you subscribe, rate, and review. Your reviews, your subscriptions help us more than you know. So we certainly do appreciate those who have done that already. Matt, it's been an interesting night, and hopefully Saturday we've got some more positives.
Yeah, that's a very nice way of putting it. It's certainly been some sort of night, but always a pleasure potting, and looking forward to good things, and kicking the shit out of Arsenal.
Yeah, we'll definitely throw it back in the blender on Saturday.
Absolutely.
All right.
Favorite place to put something.
Cheers, brother.
All right, cheers.
I'm all potted out.